evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for another episode of a weekly dose of property management bullshit. My name is Derek Higgins, and I'm your host this and every Saturday over the next few weeks while we talk about all the bullshit that nobody else wants to in property management. As you know, each week we are joined by a different co-host. Tonight we're joined by Richard, who is a regional property supervisor for a Dallas-based property management company. You have about 2,200 units in your portfolio.
Correct.
Welcome to All Things Bullshiz. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I'm a 30-year veteran of property management, working mostly in California, from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been out in Texas now for the past 5 years, and I do manage about 2,200 units over a large portfolio over 3 different counties.
Wow. So what would you say, coming from California to Texas, what would you say the 3 biggest differences are in the way things are done between the 2 states?
3 biggest differences. Well, things are more affordable in Texas, so we can afford to improve properties better. We can actually afford to provide rents that are actually livable as well. So that's one. Definitely California is much more tenant friendly than it is landlord friendly, so that's another one.
Sounds terrible.
It all depends if you're the tenant or the landlord, I guess, right?
That sounds terrible. Coming from the property management side, I can imagine with it being like that, it probably takes quite a bit of time for an eviction to be seen, heard, plus a popper.
We don't do poppers, but we do stays and appeals, but I've had people there for a year without paying rent in a unit, and it's all you only do what you can do.
That would drive me insane.
It would drive anybody insane. That's lost revenue.
Yeah, well, you, for those who don't know, Richard and I do work together for the current company that we're at. We've been together for about 3 or 4 months now, I would say.
2.
So some would say from back in November.
It can be longer.
It feels like a very, very long time. I will tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you. I spoke to a lot of the staff that we share together, and we're all really excited that you joined us. Your management style, while it is much different than anything I've ever worked with before, you have a way of exciting and motivating your employees.
Sort of key.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things about this industry that I have been real fond of is, you not only do you get what you give, but, my role is more, I take it on more as getting that person to that next level.
Absolutely.
With whatever that means, and motivating the staff on site is key and essential. I find that if you motivate your staff and up-talk them in the mornings and, speak to them in a certain type of way, they're a lot more productive. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think, and it's different now in this kind of role. I'm not choosing my own staff necessarily and having to work with what's been chosen for somebody else. And so therefore it's sometimes hard for me to identify the positives in that person, and each person has their own strengths.
Absolutely.
And I think if you sort of work on those strengths and make that person succeed based on that strength, then their success is going to be my success in the long run.
No, absolutely.
Right.
The stronger that our employees are, the easier our work is at our level, obviously.
To a certain level. Sometimes they're too strong. In the wrong ways.
That can describe a time for me when it's been like that.
Well, when I'm the one dealing with the unhappy residents when they don't like the manager or whatever. So, if the manager just has gotten sick of their shit or,
yeah.
then I have to come to me and I have to listen to the whole story. And
At least once.
And then I have to explain that, everyone has a different reality and,
yeah.
we don't know what's going on in the person's mind.
So with you being a 30-year veteran to the industry, what would you say one of your biggest pet peeves are inside this industry?
Well, it'd be lack of investment in properties. Lack of understanding and correction of problems in properties. And of course, you're always going to run across that in property management. There's always that wall you can't get over to make the property as successful as it can be.
Yeah, so how did you start in this industry?
Actually, with my own properties.
Yeah, take us back about 30 years, really.
30 years. Well, that takes me to 30 years old.
The Beatles were still together.
So I actually had a portfolio of my own, about 21 doors that I was managing.
Oh, wow.
And in a very, very rough neighborhood. And then I took on 2 other small apartment communities in that rough neighborhood. And actually, because I'm more motivating now. Back then I was sort of,
Firm, get it
more of an
done.
ass, yeah.
I wanna-
I'm a rules. There's rules.
Yeah.
And I believe you follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, it's really easy to get out.
Yeah.
And go not follow the rules somewhere else. So that neighborhood sort of stabilized a bit, and I enjoyed that. And so from then I went to work for a company in a more distressed neighborhood, and eventually moved into nicer neighborhoods.
And now you're
And now I'm doing the cream of the crop.
the absolute cream of the crop. We get to experience that both together. So, what would you say? Since this episode is really directed more towards employee management and employee appreciation, what are some of the ways that you show your appreciation to your employees when they reach those goals, or they're able to get that last lease that they needed to meet their 12 net lease goal for the week?
This is sort of an interesting one. It's not really my forte, but I've managed to make it work for me. I think people, they want an award, they want some sort of recognition, but what they really want is to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so, I think just, calling them and saying, hey, that's great, and, maybe you can do this next time, or, you're so strong at this, try this next time. And it sort of opens up their eyes to, they can be larger than they are.
Yeah.
And it makes them want to work.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say the people I work with like working with me.
Yeah, and I would say they do too. I hear it constantly. And I'll say, oddly, one of the first times that I came onto this company and I, was working on trying to give that love to that employee and, show that appreciation, the first one I gave it to looked at me like I had lost my mind. What are you doing?
It's not done anymore.
It's just really not. Everyone seems to be...
It's all about working through a mill house and getting your leases, and just that's expected of you. And
being that robot in that
right.
suit every day, and running your script and running your game, and just really doing whatever it is that they tell you to do, act the way. And a lot of times nowadays that really doesn't work very well. I feel like we need to be able to allow our employees to kind of be a little bit of themselves, because they're the first point of contact with that new prospect, and if they can be themselves and find a way to relate to that prospect, that's an easy sell.
Well, relatability is the whole thing. I have to relate with them as well.
Yeah.
So I go in and speak to them. I can walk into that lobby 2 weeks later. I know the person's name. I know what children they have. I know everything about them.
Right.
And I can bring all that up. And it's like someone's actually paying attention to me.
Yeah, and they're shocked. They're so excited and they're shocked. But I'll tell you, it's funny how many times that I switch companies or I go to a different company and there's just nothing available to recognize.
There's always something available. There's always something available.
But I think that it starts with us a lot of times.
It has to start with us.
Because, if they don't get it from us, they typically don't get it from anywhere above them, unless you're at one of these really large companies where they've budgeted in tons of money every year for...
And it's not a money thing.
It shouldn't be.
It isn't a money thing. It's just a matter of acknowledging what they've done, acknowledging the work they're doing. And even if they haven't done a lease, acknowledging what they've done to try to get a lease.
Yeah, and it only takes 10 seconds to pick up the phone and tell someone, good job.
And, it's just a matter of making them feel like they're successful, which makes them want to be more successful, which only benefits me in the long run.
No, absolutely. I feel like if they come in and they feel appreciated, they work harder for you, they go that extra mile if they feel that love, and I think it's really important to make sure that we continue to do that on sites, and you'll find that your crew is not only a lot more responsive to that, but they're so much more productive in their day.
I only do that through April, and then I'm
and
ass the rest
May
of the
through
year.
Summer, yeah, the summer months are rough.
Summer months are hard.
Summer months are rough, especially in Texas.
Especially in Texas.
Where it's 105 degrees on a cool, breezy day.
And I'm already out there trying to motivate those porters, because come June, July, they don't really care.
Yeah. Well, this last year working at one of our Irving properties, I brought in a whole bunch of those icy pops. And maintenance loved it.
It's small things like that.
Yeah.
Small things like that makes...
Get them a damn case of Gatorade. It's hot out there.
I have worked at so many properties or companies where, the upper staff, upper corporate staff, acts like we're upper corporate staff. And that just sort of creates a disconnect between the property
really
and the
does.
corporate level. I'm just a person.
Yeah.
I'm a person who's done that job. I'm a person who's been sitting in that chair.
And nobody's going to understand them better than we are because
And
we've been there for so
I let them
long.
know that I used to be in that chair, and now I'm not in that chair. And this is how I got out of that chair, and this is what you can do to get out of that chair.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you were in that chair, I'm sure at some point somebody gave you some recognition for the work that you did or some appreciation. No.
Not often.
Things like that didn't happen in the 70s.
No, I know. No, I usually recognize myself.
Yeah.
I'm a self-pusher.
Well, I am too, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got such a huge ego. Your ego's huge."
What's wrong with a huge ego?
I don't think there's anything wrong with a huge ego as long as you can keep it in check. I've worked with people before in the industry that egos are literally out of control, and all they like to do is really just talk about themselves. And I think
I've met people like that.
I think if we spend a little bit more time talking about our staff and to our staff, that we'll just get a lot better results. So moving on, before we take a real quick break, each week we send out a discussion panel on Facebook and a few of the groups that are property management. We're going to go through a few of our viewer and follower questions. But real quick, we're going to take a quick 60-second break, and we'll be back in just a second. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to join us after our break. Like I said before we went to break, about 10 weeks ago, we sent out a discussion panel on different Facebook groups that are designed for property management support. And we're going to kind of go through those questions during this part of the segment. Like I said, some of the identities and names have been changed and locations to protect, like you said, the innocent. You may find that some of these questions hit close to home, and they very well could be some of your employees that have questions for you.
Might be interesting questions.
They could be. Very could be. All right, so our first question is from Michelle out of Houston, Texas. She says, I work for a company that sets occupancy goals higher than achievable, and if not achieved, bonuses are withheld. Occasionally, however, monthly goals are achieved, but no recognition is given outside of the poor bonus structure that's in place. As a manager, how am I to boost our employee morale if no one is boosting it above me?
You need to ignore that. You need to ignore the company structure and the bonus thing and create your own motivating factors. Create your own fire.
And how would you do that?
Again, it would be just by recognizing each individual's talents, possibly giving them a more expanded role, teaching them new things.
Yeah. Yeah, because each employee you have has a different struggle. Like you said, they have their own set of weaknesses, their own set of strengths. Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so recognizing those strengths and really just kind of working on building on those weaknesses.
Developing the people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Our next question is from Danielle out of Portland, Oregon. I was just released from a position with a large company after being with them for years because it had recently been determined that I did not fit their culture. How is one to know what their culture is if even themselves didn't live by the company mission statement?
No company lives by the company mission statement.
No,
period.
They're just words on it.
Cultures are cultures. Danielle had to be let go because of the way she acted on the job.
Danielle, do better. We're going to need you to do better, Danielle.
Be best.
We're going to need you to do the most. You were fired with cause. So sorry, Danielle. All right, moving on. Amy out of Tallahassee, Florida. What is some cost-effective ways to boost my on-site team's morale when the budget doesn't allow for any type of employee retention events? I don't know that
I don't think you need an employee retention event.
I don't know that I've ever worked for a company that has employee
Not that I've ever seen, no.
retention events.
Well, my current company is doing a retention program. We'll see if that works or not. But
what are they doing?
They're doing a bonus structure that is based on completing a year. So you get part of it, and then you work the rest of the year, and you get the major part of it at the end of the year. So I'm not sure how that will work in Texas with the heat in the summer and all the problems that we have with air conditioners and all of that. I don't think people are going to see December and the money. But
I can tell you, working through, like we said earlier, working with maintenance, working out in the heat, I don't think anyone gives a shit about what's happening in December. It's like I said, it's usually 105 degrees on a cool day.
That's very true. But in something like that, I mean, again, it's you can create your own hype, your own excitement right there at the office level.
Yeah, you really can. Your team is only going to be as strong as you are.
And if you can't find the fun in the job, if you can't make their job fun, then you're in the wrong job.
Yeah, and this industry a lot of times sucks. The stress level.
Oh, there's days where you just want to, just shut the doors and lock them.
Yeah, but you've got to find a way to, I guess, separate that when you're on site and not let them see that. But I mean, I've got days where I'm just like, what the fuck have I done?
Well, there's days you just don't come into work, but
that's not true. It's not true at all. Edit all of that out.
Lose that footage.
Lose it. Burn it. All right. So our next question is Jameson out of Austin, Texas. I have been deemed a difficult manager by many of my employees, but I prefer to go by the book. Although here lately I've begun to see the book changing frequently. What should I do to make my employees comply with my management style versus trying to create extra drama? I can't believe anyone would find drama in property management.
Oh, I know. Go figure. I have a number of managers who would be considered difficult managers who like to go by a book. But there is no book. Property management changes just as much as the weather. I mean, every day brings a different challenge. Every day brings a different answer to that challenge.
Yeah.
And I think if you can't join together cohesively as a team and work on your own personal playbooks, then you really are have you lost the job.
Yeah. I agree. So we got Emily out of Dallas, Texas. I recently joined a new community lease up where the demand to lease is extremely high. With that being said, I have seen 4 new leasing agents come and go in the last 60 days because the demand is so high in our area. Where does one go in such a saturated market to find good quality employees? My company has been shopping other properties for them, but that's so difficult to do and keep a clear conscience because I wouldn't want anyone stealing my staff.
That's the business. I have properties where I walk in one day and there's a new person sitting at the desk the other person's gone. Yeah. As for leasing agents and things, it's a tough market right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
here in Dallas alone, you've got 30,000 new doors hitting the market before the end of this year.
Yeah.
They've got to get their staff from somewhere.
And lease ups are hard. Lease ups are just they're hard. Anyway, but if you're looking for talent, a waitress who has the personality, you can see that in a person. You can see that in a grocery checker or just someone you're talking to on the street. Take that person, develop them.
Yeah. No, I agree. Now, leasing agent, and I've always, when I interview people for a leasing position, I don't really care about their experience. I'm looking at their personality because I can train anyone to do anything.
Their experience can kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can just block them in.
Yeah. And then you get stuck in how they did it at their last company and this, that, and the other, and so I prefer to hire people a lot of times without the experience just because of the personality that they have or, and a lot of times I found them at, an Applebee's or a drive-in.
I don't go to Applebee's.
Well, I don't either. It's just the first thing I could think of. Edit that out because we are not marketing for Applebee's. Okay, so moving on, we've got Mike out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
That's usually where it is, yes.
In a world where reviews are held to such a high standard and constant demand from management companies, how does one protect oneself from bogus reviews left by previous staff and disgruntled residents that simply just do not get their way? When poor reviews come in, my company is extremely hard on us at a property level and breaks their back to hide those reviews versus addressing them publicly.
This is a sort of a new part of the industry for me. It wasn't part of the industry when I started out.
And it was nothing 5 years ago. Reviews now is literally everything.
Well, and I get it because if I'm going to go to a new restaurant, I look at the review first. But happy people don't write reviews. They just don't.
Yeah.
But disgruntled employees, disgruntled people write reviews. I, for one, believe in addressing the reviews head on.
Yeah.
Some companies like to try to wash the reviews or get a hold of the resident or whoever did that and change the reviews. I believe that bad reviews are good reviews because they're just a teaching block.
And it gives you an opportunity to not only change their viewpoint, but build the company a little bit better into a structure that that works better for the on-site team and the residents. And
Yeah, just to dismiss the review entirely is wrong, because there's something in that review has to be paid attention to. And so I will respond to a review word, and I'll answer right on the review page, what was wrong or what wasn't wrong or what we can do about it. Or if I know who it is and I know why they had a problem, I might even say why they had a problem.
Yeah. Now, to elaborate a little bit more on that, let's say that you got a review that came in for one of your properties where the resident has recently been evicted for non-payment for a couple months worth of rent, and they want to put you on blast for being the worst company in the world, give you a 1-star, and it's really not based off anything you did. It's based off of the fact that they're upset about being evicted.
And I will say, I'm sorry you're upset, but when you don't pay rent, you don't live here.
Yeah, that's something that you would publicly say.
I would publicly say it.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like it gives you an opportunity to, really vocalize, the viewpoints and the standards that we have within our company, but it also gives others an opportunity to see that we don't put up with that.
Right.
Yeah.
But, whether you're going to get a good review out of that, no, you're not. But even, at least it's an honest answer.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So we've got our next question is coming from Dominic out of Seattle, Washington. It's a very long question, though. So thank you, Dominic, for being quite elaborate on your question. And I hope I don't stumble through this. And if we do, we'll cut it out and start it all over again. So my management style and appearance are a little more relaxed than the company prefers. I have been here about 90 days, and I collected all but 1% of the rent by the 15th of the month, and the occupancy has jumped 12% since my arrival. The residents' employees seem to really like me, but I feel like the management company is trying to put me in this box based off of my appearance not being to their normal appearance in this line of work, and me being a little more relaxed than the prim and proper colleagues at my surrounding properties. But I was the same person when they hired me. How do I express to my supervisors that my appearance or management style does not affect how my job is done or the results that I provide in my role?
Well,
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. He's obviously achieving some of his benchmarks and things in his present style, but he might want to pay attention to the fact that they want a more structured style and just adopt to it.
Yeah, but is it worth trying to put that employee in that box? Or that?
Well, I don't know. Are we talking dreadlocks? Are we talking he's stoned? I don't know what we're talking about. So I don't have enough information to really comment on it.
I would imagine probably stoned with as long as that paragraph was that you wrote. So, Dominic, thank you for your question. We're not really quite sure how to answer that, but I would say if you want to keep your job, do whatever you need to do to make sure you keep your job. And if that means that you conform to the way the person that's paying your paycheck wants you to conform, then that's just what you need to do.
End of the day, that's what you got to do.
Or go find another job.
Well, heck, in my job, I
You
have
could
to
go work with Michael in San Diego, California, or one of these other properties that have asked all these questions. They're looking for, or that leasing position that they didn't have or can't cover every 60 days. That'd be a good place for them.
I work in a company where I'm one of the better dressed people. But
wait a minute now. I work with you.
I know. I dress the way I do because I do that to dress, for example, to people who work under me.
Yeah.
And maybe they're finding that he's just too relaxed.
But with that being said, we'll move right on to our next to last question. My company hosts a banquet at the end of the year to recognize its employees. However, it seems to be the same people that win every year. How do I make my property stand out when my occupancy and renewal doesn't change much over the year?
Then you need to find a way to change it.
I think maybe she's at like 100% all the time.
Well, then why would she be getting acknowledged?
Because maybe she's not being recognized for any growth because she doesn't have any potential to make any growth.
Then she needs to have them out of category.
She what?
Needs to have them out of category.
Right.
If she's
most stabilized property.
Most stabilized property. Of course, you could be 50%. Be the most stabilized property if you're just going to stay at 50%.
It all depends on what your stabilization
Again, there's lots of variables that play into this answer.
Yeah.
Whether or not her occupancy's okay, her occupancy's good or excellent.
Yeah. What you should have done is been a little bit more like Dominique and given me a paragraph so we understand what exactly it is that you're asking us. So our last question is, in an industry where one bad apple can ruin the whole bag, I have an employee on site that is related to one of the owners. He is an employee who produces the least amount of work and has the lowest closing ratio. He caused a lot of friction within my staff. However, the company seems unwilling to do anything about it. He is clearly held to a different standard than any of my other staff. As a manager, what I do to alleviate some of the frustration from within my staff?
And this one I understand because every company has that person.
Everybody.
And, you have to sort of build a mental wall around that person.
Yeah.
They're not going to expect anything out of him. He's taking part of your payroll, but you have to build outside of that wall. Build your staff. And, and if your staff is so insecure to say, why isn't he doing this? Then you got the wrong staff.
Yeah, that could be. You might want to start all over.
Move his desk to a corner.
Yeah. Well, we got other people here that are looking for jobs on these last 10 questions, so maybe you can reach out to one of them. Alrighty. So that concludes all of our questions for this week. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. Again, thank you so much, Richard, for joining us tonight for another episode of A Weekly Dose of Property Management Bullshit. While we were on our first break, however, I came up with a few additional questions to kind of catch you off guard a little bit. Okay?
Why not?
Sure, why not?
You catch me off guard all the time.
Absolutely.
Right.
I live for that shit at work. All right. So do you remember day one, 482 years ago?
It wasn't that long ago.
Well, whatever.
It's like yesterday.
Okay. Every day is a new day in property management. But do you remember day one?
To a small extent, yes.
Okay. So if you could turn back time to day one in this industry, what would you say to yourself to better yourself for the road ahead?
Listen more, react less. I think that's...
What does that mean?
I need to listen more to the problems coming at me instead of reacting to the problems immediately upon them coming at me. Understand where the frustration level of people is coming from.
I can understand that because it is in my... It courses through my blood to react before I think.
Yeah, I usually speak before I think, yes.
Yeah. And I've had to spend the last 10 years or so kind of redeveloping my brain and retraining my brain to spend a little more time thinking about what's actually going on, coming up with a solution for it before my mouth opens, because I'm not a very filtered person.
No, you're not.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like it or love it, whatever. Don't matter to me. So any advice for newcomers of property management that might be interested in joining our lovely industry here?
Think hard before you do it. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah, have thick skin.
You got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
You've got to understand it is not a 9-to-5 job. It is sometimes
if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job,
7-day-a-week, 24-hour-day job.
Yeah, sometimes it is. Holidays are not excluded from that,
Especially, no, not at all.
Yeah. In fact, I think just before this taping, it's, obviously a Saturday, and I think just before this taping, you were on site at one of your properties.
I was on site.
It just
on a Saturday. I'm on site every Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm usually on site at one of my properties every day of the week.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So be ready for a roller coaster of a shit show, and just.
You have to learn how to deal with a lot of personalities.
Yeah, there are a lot of different personalities,
and you've got to somehow manage to work with all of them.
Yeah, adjust yourself, adjust your way of thinking, and like I said, have thick skin, because there's going to be someone that hurts your feelings every day.
I had a manager a while back. She was all upset in tears because someone called her a bitch. I'm like, that's a Tuesday. It's a good day.
Right. I've been called a bitch 6 times this week by somebody in my corporate staff. What are you talking about?
It wasn't me.
Allegedly. All right. So, being in this industry 30 years, I'm sure you have a funny closing story for us. Maybe you would like to share that with us.
A funny closing story. No?
No. All right. Really nothing? You ain't got shit? There's nothing happened funny in your life? In this industry?
Funny.
Or ridiculous, or, just dig deep.
Well, okay, my favorite one was the gal who insisted that I ran over with a golf cart.
I'm sorry, that you what?
Ran over with a golf cart.
You ran over her with a golf cart?
Well, I was actually giving her a notice to vacate because she was, but she decided to chase me out of the office and jumped on the back of the golf cart.
Oh my goodness.
And fell off the golf cart as I was leaving. But I didn't run over with the golf cart. And so when she actually had to go to court to evict her, she told this entire story about Richard did
how
this
you
and he did this.
bulldozed her over in the parking lot.
Ran over the parking, and she goes, she has the money. I have the money. I just want to pay my rent. And the judge turned to me and he said, do you want to take her rent? And I said, no, Your Honor, I don't. And he says, any reason you don't want to take a rent? And I said, because God just don't like ugly.
Ooh.
And he said, oh, okay.
Yep, case closed and eviction granted
Move
for
on.
the plaintiff. Alrighty, well, that's all the time we have for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I enjoy each and every day that I get to work with you. Well, I enjoy most of the... I enjoy a few of the days.
I've seen your face when I walk into properties where you're there.
Right, it's always just like... So thank you for joining us tonight. Best of luck to you in your next 30 years. And make sure you join us here every Saturday night for a new episode of A Weekly Dose of Property Management Bullshiz. I don't have anything else. What if the viewers are interested in trying to contact you? How do they find you, Richard?
Well, they can find me. They can email me at rjstoffel, STOFFEL, at yahoo.com.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find his phone number written on the bathroom stall at any Denny's here in town. Best of luck to you, and on that note, join us.
Not this town.
Not this town? Oh, you've only been here 5 years.
Well, yeah.
That's true.
They've painted all those Denny's since then.
Right. The new upgraded Denny's. Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us, Richard. And join us here each and every Saturday night for a different episode of A Weekly Dose of Property Management Bullshiz. Thank you, and have a good night. Somebody bring me a goddamn taco.